Shalom, brothers and sisters, and once again, this is another edition on behalf of Salad Foundation Israelite Academy, and we're going to be talking about today the language of the ancient Hebrew. That is the language of the ancient Hebrew. I am your host, Shabar Israel, bringing you a wonderful lesson once again so we can know basically about the language of the ancient Hebrew. Okay, so we're going to get straight into it. For the sake of time, and hopefully you will be edified by the end of this video. Okay, so let's start. There has been a lot of controversy when it comes to the authentic pronunciation and the understanding of the Hebrew language, okay? And the majority of the controversy, it stems from many different modifications that the Hebrew language has gone through in the last couple of millennia. I'm going to try to attempt to give you the history along with the true understanding of the ancient Hebrew language. So just sit tight, buckle up, and we'll try to explain this to the best of my ability. Some might pose the question of where does the word Hebrew actually come from, because we hear that a lot. Where does the term the Hebrew actually comes from, and where is it first mentioned in the Holy Bible? So it's not hard, brothers and sisters, if you will actually turn to Genesis 10 and 21. When you go in Genesis chapter 10, it speaks about the generations of the sons of Noah. Noah had 3 sons, which was Ham, Shem, and Japheth. Or you could say Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And when you read about Genesis chapter 10, it's just giving you the breakdown on the generations of the sons of Noah. In Genesis 10 and 21, it reads in Genesis 10 and 21, it says, "Unto Shem, also the father of all the children of Eber, the brother of Japheth, the elder, even to him were children born." So in Genesis chapter 10, 21, it says once again, "Into Shem also, the father of all the children of Eber." So Shem was the father of all the children of Eber. See that? So Eber, the name Eber, brothers and sisters, it's a mispronunciation of the word Hebrew. Okay? The name Eber is a mispronunciation of the name Hebrew. So the name Hebrew is a mispronunciation of the name Eber. At one point in time, all the nations of the earth spoke one language, and that language was Hebrew, brothers and sisters. Yes, that language was Hebrew. Matter of fact, let's head over to that book, chapter, and verse to prove to you. When you go in Genesis chapter 11, verse 1, it speaks about the failure of man. Genesis 11 and 1. It says, "And the whole earth was of one language and of one speech." So the whole earth was of one language and one speech. So if the whole earth was of one language and one speech, what was that? What was that one language and one speech? What was that one dialect and one speech? What was it? Yes, that one language, according to Genesis 11 and 1, was Hebrew. Okay, everyone spoke Hebrew in the beginning of time. Everyone spoke the Hebrew dialect. There was no English and French, Spanish, Italian, German, there was no Portuguese, all these diverse languages in the earth today, such also as Creole, all different type of languages in the earth today. We have many different languages in the earth today. In the beginning of time, Genesis 11 and 1, there was one language every living being was speaking, and that was Hebrew, brothers and sisters. So when Genesis 11:1 speaks of the whole earth was of one language and one speech, it's talking about Hebrew. There was no other dialects on the earth during that time. Hebrew being the tongue of creation, right? And I can show you this according to the book of Jubilees, okay? Because in the book of Jubilees, it goes in and show you that the tongue of creation was the Hebrew dialect. So let's go into the book of Jubilees. Now this is not in your King James Holy Bible. This is a separate book, the book of Jubilees, and just look it up online, brothers and sisters, and it shouldn't be hard to find. You can probably buy it from Amazon, eBay, Barnes and Nobles. Just look it up, the book of Jubilees. It explains about the one language that Genesis 11 talks about is basically Hebrew being the tongue of creation. So let's head over to the book of Jubilees. This is the book of Jubilees, brothers and sisters, chapter 12, which speaks about stories of Abraham, which was the father of Isaac. And we're going to begin with the 24th verse in Jubilees chapter 12 to show you that the tongue of creation was truly the Hebrew language. So this is Jubilees 12:24, as you see on the screen. We're going to read to the 28th verse. It says, I will be a God to you and your son. Now, the Most High is talking here to Abraham, I believe. Yeah, he's talking to Abraham. He says in 24th verse of chapter 12 of Jubilees, I will be a God to you and your son, and to your son's sons, and to all your offspring. Fear not, from now on, and to all generations of the earth, I am your God. Verse 25 of Jubilees chapter 12, the Lord God said, which is Yahweh, the Lord Yahweh God said, he opened his mouth and his ears. So he opened Abraham's mouth and ears that he may hear and speak with his mouth and with the language which has been revealed, for it had ceased from the mouth of all the children of men from the day of the overthrow of Babel. Because you know about in Genesis, I believe in chapter 11, if you read about the Tower of Babel, in Genesis chapter 11, the Most High, basically what he did was he configured the languages of living beings. See, so when you read about in Genesis chapter 11, it'll tell you that everyone spoke one language, and that during the Tower of Babel, there was the confusion of tongues. Okay, because the children of man were trying to build a tower to reach the heavens. This is in Genesis chapter 11. You can read about that. So the Most High didn't intend for them to do that. So what did he do? He basically said, let us go down and confound the language, that they may not understand one another's speech. So the Lord Yahweh scattered the man abroad upon the face of all the earth. You know, and he confounded the language of all the earth. And from then to that point, the Lord scattered them abroad on the face of the earth. You see that? So let's go back to Jubilees. We're back in Jubilees, chapter 12, verse 26. And I opened his mouth and ears and his lips, talking about Abraham. I opened his mouth and his ears and his lips, and I began to speak with him in Hebrew, in the tongue of creation. So Jubilees 12:26 says that the Most High opened the mouth of Abraham, his ears in his lips, and he began to speak with him in the Hebrew, which is the tongue of creation. So Hebrew is the tongue of creation. Yes, Hebrew is the tongue of creation, according to Jubilees chapter 12, verse 26. We're going to read on down to the 28th verse. He took the books of his fathers. This is verse 27 of chapter Jubilees 12. He took the books of his fathers, and these were written in Hebrew, and he transcribed them, and he began from then on to study them. This is Abraham studying in the Hebrew. And I made known to him that which he could not understand, and he studied them during the 6 rainy months. Verse 28 of Jubilees chapter 12. In the 7th year of the 6th week, he spoke to his father and informed him that he would leave Haran to go into the land of Canaan to see it and return to him. So Jubilees chapter 12 verses 24 to 28 speaks of Hebrew as being the tongue of creation, because according to Genesis 11 and 1 here, it tells you that the earth was of one language, one dialect. And what was that? Even though Genesis 11 and 1 don't necessarily tell you it was Hebrew, it was Hebrew. Okay, going back to Genesis 10 and 21, Eber, which is a mispronunciation of the Hebrew, because you can look that up, brothers and sisters, in your Strong Concordance. You can look that up in your Strong Concordance. Just look up Eber. It's a mispronunciation of the term Hebrew. So yeah, according to the book of Jubilees, 12 and 26 verse says that Hebrew was the tongue of creation.